Death is the liberator of the soul, setting us free from the limitations of the physical world and opening the door to new dimensions of consciousness. Eckhart Tolle. In the face of death, we are stripped of pretenses and forced to confront the essence of our existence. Ernest Becker. The denial of death. So death is nothing to us, nor does it concern us in the latest, since the nature of the mind is understood to be mortal. Just as in the time that we are not, death is nothing to us, for we are not present. Death, too, is nothing to us, nor when it is present. Lucretius on the nature of things. Death does not exist. It is logically impossible for it to exist. This was the conclusion of the Roman philosopher and poet Lucretius, who lived in the 1st century BCE. Lucretius belonged to the philosophical school called Epicureanism. Epicureans sought to provide a rational and materialistic explanation of the world, free from religious dogma and superstition. In his book On the Nature of Things, which presents his philosophy in poetic form, Lucretius argues that we should never worry or be fearful of death. Lucretius' theory of death is simple. Death offers only two possibilities. 1. The body dies and nothing continues. Thus, you are not there to experience the actual event of death. 2. The body dies and something continues. Thus, we have not died. If the body dies and there is nothing, then the event of death is not something that I am there to experience. In that sense, there is no death. However, there is still the experience of dying. So while there may be no such thing as the actual event of death for us, many spiritual and philosophical traditions give helpful advice on how to best do the dying. And if the body dies, but you continue in some form, there is obviously no death because you have continued on after the death of the body. But to continue in some form, that is, as Hamlet says, the rub. To die, to sleep no more, and by a sleep to say we end the heartache and the 1,000 natural shocks that flesh is heir to. 'Tis a consummation devoutly to be wished, to die, to sleep, perchance to dream. Aye, there's the rub, for in that sleep of death what dreams may come. William Shakespeare, Hamlet. What form will I continue after death? And is there a way in which to make that form as auspicious as possible? Many spiritual and philosophical traditions give helpful advice on how to make the form, after the body form, the best possible. Tibetan Buddhists have a very simple formula for this. In life, you make mind. In death, mind makes you. Put simply, during our life, the limitation of the body-mind allows one to have seeming control over one's attention. And as you become whatever you give your attention to, we have the possibility of turning our attention to that which is free, open, and loving. However, according to Tibetan Buddhists, after the death of the body-mind, we no longer have the limitations of the body-mind on attention. This means, after the body dies, that wherever attention goes becomes ourselves and our situation instantly. Contemplate all the different thoughts that you have in a day. Now, imagine the moment that you thought of Paris, you were instantly in Paris. Doesn't seem too bad until you think about all the other things you think about or obsess about. Therefore, Tibetan Buddhists and many other spiritual traditions suggest that we purify our attention during our lifetimes. There are a vast amount of practices to do this, to discipline our attention. Prayer, meditation, fasting, yoga, worship, etc. However, all of these practices are merely forms of one meta-practice, turning and resting attention in its source. we make mind a very subtle, spacious and open mind by turning and resting attention in its source, thus purifying and making auspicious the mind that will make us after death. Our dying, the experience prior to the death of the body-mind, requires something else from us. Dying requires a deep, easy and natural surrender. Thus we prepare for the best possible death during life by disciplining attention and practicing surrender. Tamil Nadu, India, 1879. A 16-year-old boy named Venkataraman Iyer, later to be known as Ramana Maharshi, is alone in his uncle's house and is suddenly overcome by an intense fear of death. Instead of running from this fear, he decides to investigate it. He lays down, making his body still, and imagines himself dying. He asks himself what it means to die, what dies, and what remains after death. As he plunges into this self-inquiry, he finds that although his body could die, his consciousness, or I sense, cannot. This experience led to a profound realization. Venkataraman Iyer discovered that his true nature was not the physical body or the fleeting mind, but the eternal and unchanging self, which he later referred to as the I, or self. He became detached from worldly matters and his academic pursuits, losing interest in school, friends and family. His life took a dramatic turn, and he left home for the holy mountain Arunachala, where he spent the rest of his days as Ramana Maharshi, a revered guru and sage, guiding others towards the realization of their own true self. After 50 years of teaching, Ramana Maharshi was diagnosed with cancer, which gradually weakened his body. Despite the physical suffering, Ramana Maharshi remained remarkably serene and unperturbed, embodying the teachings he had shared with countless seekers throughout his life. When asked about his dying, Ramana said, "They say I am dying, but I am not going away. Where would I go? I am here." Ramana's first experience of dying was a young man caused him to turn attention to source in the form of the question, who or what is it that dies? With such commitment and power that Ramana resolved attention in its source once and for all. In other words, Ramana Maharshi achieved enlightenment by realizing the self. Ramana Maharshi went on to teach the practice of self-inquiry with a simple question, who am I? The essence of this practice lies in directing one's attention inward, shifting focus from external objects and identities to the fundamental nature of the self. By consistently keeping this question in mind, who am I? One moves beyond superficial layers of conditioned thoughts, emotions and identities and rests in their source, the pure awareness that underlies all experiences. Remember, as mentioned, the two best possible responses we can have to our dying are 1. Turn attention to its source. 2. Surrender. Clearly, this practice of self-inquiry, expressed in the question, who am I, is the practice of turning attention to its source. The constant purifying of attention by turning it away from its objects and back to its source. Ramana Maharshi realized that many people may not be able to practice self-inquiry, so he suggested one other method, surrender. The practice of surrender, which Ramana taught, suggested that individuals let go of their egoic desires, attachments, and the illusions of personal control. This practice involves relinquishing the ego's incessant need for control and surrendering the outcomes of one's actions, surrendering the sense of personal doership. According to Ramana Maharshi, surrender is not a passive resignation, but an active surrender of the ego's dominance. It is a surrender of the limited self to the infinite self, recognizing the interplay of cosmic forces beyond our individual understanding. Through surrender, one cultivates humility, openness, and a deep trust in the divine intelligence that orchestrates the universe. Ramana Maharshi taught that true surrender leads to the dissolution of the ego and the merging of individual consciousness with the universal consciousness. Also, practicing surrender during one's lifetime is the best possible preparation for the surrender needed during the dying process. As Ramana Maharshi's cancer progressed, devotees and followers gathered around him, offering their love and support. Ramana Maharshi continued to radiate an indescribable aura of peace, drawing people from far and wide to witness his remarkable presence. On the 14th of April, 1950, at the age of 70, Ramana Maharshi died peacefully. In his spiritual classic on death and dying, Easy Death, Spiritual Wisdom on the Ultimate Transcending of Death and Everything Else, the spiritual master and teacher Adida Samraj makes these suggestions. Recognize the inevitability of death. Realize the importance of acknowledging and accepting the reality of death as an integral part of the human experience. Recognizing the inevitability of death is an essential aspect of coming to terms with the human condition and embracing the fullness of life. Our denial of death has profound implications not only for ourselves, but has been the dominant cause of much of human history. In the best-selling book, The Denial of Death by Ernest Becker, the author explores the profound impact of humankind's denial of death. Our denial of death gives rise to a multitude of problems that affect individuals and society as a whole. First and foremost, the denial of death leads to the suppression of existential anxieties and the avoidance of confronting the finitude of human existence. This avoidance manifests in various ways, such as the pursuit of material wealth, status, and power as a means of creating a false sense of immortality. This obsession with external validation and the fear of death breeds competitiveness, aggression, and the exploitation of others, resulting in social hierarchies, violence, and injustice. Moreover, the denial of death hampers authentic self-expression as individuals strive to conform to societal norms and expectations, suppressing their true desires and passions. Becker argues that by acknowledging the reality of mortality, embracing our vulnerability, and finding meaning beyond the fear of death, we can lead more authentic and fulfilling lives, as well as fostering a healthier and more compassionate society. Surrender the ego. Let go of attachments, desires, and identification with the egoic self. To surrender the ego is to let go of our personal control and to let go and trust the mystery. We surrender to the unknown, embracing the mystery of what lies beyond physical existence. We surrender to the reality beyond the limited sense of self. Surrendering the ego means recognizing the limited nature of our individual identity and embracing the greater mystery and interconnectedness of existence. It involves relinquishing the ego's grip on life's circumstances, accepting the inevitability of death, and surrendering to the flow of the dying process. Surrendering the ego allows us to approach death with great equanimity, acceptance, and trust. In the process of surrender, we also open ourselves to the guidance and support of a higher power or spiritual reality. By surrendering the ego, we align ourselves with the natural rhythm of life and death, allowing the transition to unfold in its own time and way. As we let go of the ego's need for control and identification with a physical form, we connect with the timeless essence that transcends death. Be present in the moment. By being present in the moment during the dying process, we can let go of regrets from the past and worries about the future. We can accept the reality of the situation and find peace within it. We can acknowledge our dying and focus on making the most of our remaining time. We can cherish and deepen our connections with loved ones, helping in open communication, forgiveness, and the opportunity to say goodbye in a meaningful way. Being present in the moment allows us to appreciate the small joys and blessings that exist even in the face of death. The dying process often brings reflections on one's life and the potential regrets or unresolved issues that may exist. By being present in the moment, we can confront these regrets, seek reconciliation, and find closure. This leads to a greater sense of peace and acceptance. Release fear and anxiety. Recognize the illusory nature of fear and anxiety and consciously choose to release them, embracing trust and surrender instead. To release fear and anxiety during the dying process, to create calm and comforting space with soft lighting, cozy seating, and items that bring comfort. Open up about any feelings, worries, and thoughts surrounding death and the unknown. Spend quality time with family and close friends, share memories, and feel their love and support throughout this journey. Participate in any rituals or spiritual practices that hold personal meaning and bring a sense of peace and purpose. Allow yourself to receive compassion and empathy from those around you. Embrace the unknown. Approach death with curiosity and openness, embracing the mystery of the afterlife and the unknown realms beyond physical existence. Cultivate a sense of wonder and inquisitiveness about what happens after death, seeking to explore and understand the mysteries surrounding it. Embrace the fact that the afterlife is inherently mysterious and beyond our current understanding. Contemplate the existence of an afterlife, considering the possibility that consciousness, or some form of existence, may continue beyond physical death. Recognize that there may be realms or dimensions beyond our physical existence, acknowledging that there could be aspects of reality that are currently beyond our grasp. Reflect on the idea that life may extend beyond the confines of the physical body, exploring the concept of consciousness and its potential connection to realms outside the material world. A guided meditation for overcoming the fear of death. Find a quiet and comfortable place to sit or lie down where you can relax and focus without distractions. Close your eyes and take a few deep breaths, allowing your body and mind to settle into a state of deep relaxation. As you begin to relax, bring your attention to the present moment. Let go of any thoughts or concerns about the past or the future. Allow yourself to fully immerse in the present experience. Envision yourself in a peaceful and sacred space. It could be a serene mountain landscape, a tranquil temple, or any other place that evokes a sense of tranquility and spiritual connection. Feel the gentle breeze, the warmth of the sun, or the softness of the ground beneath you. Take a moment to become aware of your breath. Notice the natural rhythm of your inhalation and exhalation. Feel the breath flowing in and out, bringing with it a sense of calmness and clarity. As you breathe, bring your attention to the concept of death. Recognize that death is an inevitable part of life's journey. Reflect on the impermanence of all things, the ever-changing nature of existence. Contemplate that just as the seasons come and go, life too follows a natural cycle of birth, growth, decay, and death. Allow yourself to explore any fears or anxieties that arise when contemplating death. Notice any physical sensations or emotions that arise within you. Instead of resisting or pushing them away, embrace them with an attitude of compassion and curiosity. In Tibetan Buddhism, there is a practice called Tonglen, which involves breathing in the suffering of oneself and others, and exhaling love, compassion, and peace. Let us incorporate this practice into our meditation to transform our fear of death. With each inhalation, imagine that you are breathing in the fear, anxiety, and resistance surrounding death. Visualize this fear as a dark, heavy smoke or cloud. Breathe it in with courage and an open heart. As you exhale, imagine that you are releasing a brilliant, radiant light. This light represents love, compassion, and acceptance. Visualize it enveloping you and expanding outward, touching all beings, offering them solace and liberation from fear. Continue this practice of inhalation, breathing in fear, and exhalation, breathing out love and compassion. With each cycle of breath, feel a greater sense of peace and spaciousness within yourself.
Sarvesham swastir bhavatu Sarvesham shantir bhavatu Sarvesham purnam bhavatu Sarvesham सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु.
Shift your attention to the present moment, to the sensations in your body and the sounds around you. Notice how your body feels, the gentle rise and fall of your breath. Become aware of the stillness and serenity within you. Know that death is not the end, but a transition to a new state of being. Embrace the wisdom of interconnectedness of all things, the continuity of consciousness beyond physical form. As you come to the end of this meditation, express gratitude for the opportunity to contemplate the nature of life and death. Carry this awareness with you as you navigate your daily life, remembering the preciousness of each moment and the interconnectedness of all beings. When you are ready, gently bring your awareness back to the room. Wiggle your fingers and toes and slowly open your eyes, carrying the peace and insight from this meditation into your day. The previous book mentioned, The Denial of Death by Ernest Becker, is a highly regarded book on the subject. However, it does not specifically focus on the process of death and dying. Instead, it examines how the awareness of death shapes human behavior and the strategies individuals employ to cope with the fear of death. And of course, a well-known spiritual classic on death and dying is the Tibetan Book of the Dead. The Tibetan Book of the Dead is a sacred Buddhist text that serves as a guide for individuals during the transitional state between death and rebirth, offering insights on the nature of reality, consciousness, and the path to liberation. Here are 5 other excellent and insightful books on death and dying. The Tibetan Book of Living and Dying by Sogyal Rinpoche. This book offers a profound exploration of life, death, and the afterlife from a Tibetan Buddhist perspective. It provides practical advice on how to prepare for death and support loved ones during the dying process. Being Mortal, Medicine and What Matters in the End by Atul Gawande. Atul Gawande, a renowned surgeon, examines the modern approach to death and dying, highlighting the importance of providing compassionate and personalized care to individuals facing terminal illnesses. He addresses the need to prioritize quality of life over medicinal interventions. When Breath Becomes Air by Paul Kalanithi, a poignant memoir by a neurosurgeon diagnosed with terminal lung cancer. This book chronicles his journey from doctor to patient. Kalanithi reflects on life, death, and the search for meaning, offering profound insights into the human experience. The Death of Ivan Ilyich by Leo Tolstoy. In this classic novella, Tolstoy explores the existential crisis faced by Ivan Ilyich, a high-ranking Russian official, as he grapples with his impending death. The story delves into the profound questions of the meaning of life and the inevitability of mortality. Easy Death, Spiritual Wisdom on the Ultimate Transcending of Death and Everything Else by Aditya Samraj. This book delves into the nature of death, offering guidance on how to approach the dying process with understanding and acceptance. It explores the spiritual dimensions of death and the potential for transformation and liberation. Death has been a subject of philosophical inquiry throughout history. Lucretius argued that death does not truly exist because either we are not there to experience it, or if something continues after the death of the body, then actual death has not occurred. While Lucretius offered a logical perspective on death, many spiritual and philosophical traditions provide guidance on how to approach dying and prepare for the unknown. Many spiritual traditions emphasize purifying attention and practicing surrender, while the life and teachings of Ramana Maharshi illustrate the power of self-inquiry and surrender in the face of death. Recognizing the inevitability of death, surrendering the ego, being present in the moment, releasing fear and anxiety, and embracing the unknown are very beneficial ways to navigate the process of dying. Ultimately, the exploration of death invites us to contemplate the nature of existence and the possibilities beyond physical life.